So once again, welcome to the course, which is titled The Buddhist Path of Awakening. And hopefully it is that, a path of awakening for all of us. We're working our way through the profound treasury of the ocean of Dharma, 3-volume set by Chogyam Trungpa. But we have taken a break because we're going to do refuge and bodhisattva vows. And in that regard, I've got a tentative announcement, which is I think we are going to have to split them and do refuge vows on October 12th and bodhisattva vows on October 19th. And there are a couple of reasons for this. But one of the main ones is that the instruction, which I knew about and was sort of not paying attention to, is that only people who have taken the bodhisattva vow or are taking it can come to the bodhisattva vow ceremony. People who have taken refuge but have not taken the bodhisattva vow yet are not supposed to do that. And it should culminate, both one time or both times, with a celebration. And I certainly want that to be able to happen for the refuge ceremony and for the bodhisattva vow ceremony. So I think we're going to have to split them. And also, in taking a look at the full bodhisattva vow ceremony, it's rather a lot to do, to put them both in one day. So I think we'll, at this point, unless something comes up, stay tuned, but I think we're probably going to have the refuge ceremony October 12th. And anybody can come to that, absolutely anyone, Buddhist, non-Buddhist, doesn't matter. And then on the 19th of October, 19th of October, we'll have the Bodhisattva vow ceremony only for Bodhisattvas who have already taken the vow and for people who are taking the vow. And Jane, I haven't stopped your video. Somebody is having difficulty with their video. And
it says you cannot stop your video because the host has stopped it.
Anybody else having a problem like that?
No, I had to turn her video off. I just sent her an invitation to turn it on.
Oh, Barry, for some reason, had to turn it off, and he sent you an invitation to turn it on again.
Sorry I can tell you about it, Jane, but.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, today the topic is the Bodhisattva vow. And it's a big topic and a very profound one. And I can see why the instructions are that there should be a gap between the two vows, not taken together, but there should be a hiatus between taking the refuge vow and then taking the bodhisattva vow sometime later, because the bodhisattva vow is a lot to add on to the refuge vow. So just plunging in. This chapter that I hope you've read, and if you haven't and you're taking the vows, please be sure to read it, is quite profound and somewhat long. Trungpa Rinpoche starts by saying that the bodhisattva vow is the commitment to put others before oneself. It is a statement of willingness to give up one's own well-being, even one's own enlightenment, for the sake of others. How does this happen? How can we actually, in all genuineness, do this? Put others before ourselves, even their enlightenment before our own. The reason lies in our experience, our growing experience and understanding of meditation and what meditation actually is. It's not a sedative or a soporific. It's a coming into the real world, an opening of one's awareness into this. And in doing that, as we come into this, we give up thoughts. And thoughts contain the very notion of self. So in giving up thoughts of all kinds, we are really beginning to contact egolessness. I mean, egolessness is not a thing that you find. It's the absence of it's what you experience in the absence of the thoughts about me, I. Those thoughts are always fraught with tension. The tension of worrying about I's well-being. How am I doing? Am I doing well? Am I doing badly? And in coming into meditation practice, we are giving that up and just resting in this space that is here all the time, that is always with us, and that is full, rich with the arising of the 6 kinds of phenomena, or the 6 kinds of appearances, they're called, which are colors, they're visual objects, their shapes, their sounds, their smells, tastes, bodily sensations, the feeling of your bottom on the chair, and mental events of all kinds. And in coming into that and letting go of the thought of I, the vividness especially of the world of the senses increases dramatically. And there are moments that we've all had, more and less, when this world is so vivid, so bright, so colorful, so moving in its beauty and transience, its impermanence, the way it changes instant by instant. It's heartbreakingly beautiful, and we all experience it in greater and lesser degrees. That quality of heartbreak, of the appreciation of this world, is the real meaning of compassion. And seeing it clearly, without thought, is the real meaning of transcendent wisdom, prajna, and beyond. This is what's necessary in order to genuinely step into the Bodhisattva mentality. Now, the Bodhisattva mentality is not just this, though. This is the sort of real experience of it as we come present. But the Bodhisattva mentality as well can be couched in thought. And the thought is, I have the intention of being helpful to other people. Out of compassion for them, I'm moved. That's the relative intention, the relative thought. The intention in the Bodhisattva, that's the commitment that you make in your mind because you want to tread the path. It's relative, it's not absolute. The absolute is the complete coming into awareness. So we've got these 2 aspects, relative and absolute. The relative lives in thought, in formulations, in language, and it says, I'm going to tread the path of being helpful to other human beings. I have that intention. And as we do that, we come present and we come with our hearts and our minds into this beautiful world in which the only thing to do is to interact with everything and everybody around us. And so we become both intentional and genuine bodhisattvas, helpers, lovers, you might say, of this planet, of this world. And he says, in order to do this, the bodhisattva lives in the spirit of the vow. The vow is to be of benefit to others. Perfecting the 6 paramitas, these are the transcendent virtues, so that she or he can liberate sentient beings and help them. And there are 3 levels of help that are described in the teachings. The first level is material help, food, clothing, shelter, whatever a person needs materially. The second level of help is helping a person or a sentient being, could be an animal, anything, be free from fear. We're moving up. And the third level of help is to help this other sentient being, this living thing, become free from ignorance, become enlightened, become awake. It's not even really so a matter of enlightenment. You know, we're so focused on enlightenment, and it's often offered to us, and we're told that we should want to be enlightened. But the fact of the matter is that as we achieve sanity, as we come into this present moment more and more and let go of those neurotic dreams that go through our minds, those worries, those hopes and fears, enlightenment becomes irrelevant, because sanity is really what is being practiced. So it's like you come present and don't really have time to worry about good and bad, hope and fear, sanity and insanity, enlightenment and samsara. These are the creations of dream, and they're full of suffering, these polarities. Instead, we come present, we become awake. There's no time for that. And what there is time for is of being in interactive service with love, with compassion, with appreciation for the world. And the 6 paramitas, generosity, discipline, patience, energy, meditation, and transcendent wisdom, these 6, are expressions of the way in which we behave as we inhabit this world of the present moment. So we'll come to that again. He says, we're taking a chance, a leap, but one that has been taken by millions of others on the path before us. Millions, bodhisattvas, Buddhas, teachers. This is a tradition of responsibility. Responsible because we're coming alive. We're giving up the dreams of fictions, and openness for the same reasons that has been handed down for generations before us. And now we too are participating in this sanity and the dignity of this tradition. And I just can't emphasize enough that it's real. It's not some being goody two-shoes. This is a matter of achieving awake sanity, a state of mind beyond a state. It's switching our loyalty from the dream of thought, all those fictions, to reality. It's discovering the real and giving up the fictions, the illusions, the falsehoods, the semi-truths, the half-truths, which are, if it's a half-truth, it's not true, of thought. So it's really a matter of switching our loyalty from these dreams to the awareness of the real world. And in that, then we can truly and genuinely become of service because we want to, because we're moved to, we're inspired to. He says, taking this vow, which is our expression of intent, is magnificent and glorious. He says, so taking the Bodhisattva vow, we are acknowledging that we are not going to be the instigators of further chaos and misery in the world out of selfishness, because we're so absorbed in our selfish concerns. But we are going to take responsibility to do something about the confusion and suffering of ourselves and of the world, to be liberators. Liberators from what? Liberators from the prison of neurotic dream. We're going to be bodhisattvas, inspired to work on ourselves as well as with other people. And we're no longer trying to build up our own grandiosity. We're simply trying to become human beings who are genuinely able to help others. That is, we develop precisely that quality of selflessness, which is generally lacking in our world. And this selflessness is not a matter of wearing sackcloth and ashes, of putting chains around our feet, of, sort of making ourselves into martyrs. This selflessness is a matter of coming present. And that is where the self dissolves. He says, the work of the Bodhisattva is without credentials. It's a totally non-credit situation. Truly genuine. It's genuine. You're moved to do it. Out of genuineness. It's not a matter of being a virtuous person. That would be awful. Then we'd be being false. And then he says it's necessary to develop a sense of compassion, first towards oneself and then towards others. And the way in which you develop a sense of compassion for yourself is, first of all, by ceasing to be hard on yourself. I'm such a terrible meditator. Oh, I'll never get anywhere on the path. Oh, I don't understand anything. That goes. And then the second way to develop a sense of compassion for ourselves is we begin to appreciate this world that we live in the present moment, as it arises so beautifully, vividly, colorfully. He says here, we have to join the campaign of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to work with sentient beings properly, fully, and thoroughly, without grasping, without confusion, and without aggression. Such a campaign is a natural development of the practice of meditation, because meditation brings a growing sense of egolessness. Ego is only contained in our thoughts, the stories we tell ourselves about this hero or heroine, I. He says a bodhisattva may teach the Dharma in the form of intellectual understanding, artistic understanding, or even business understanding. He always said, there were so many things going on. People were craftspeople. They were trying to make a living, the hippies, making craft stuff. So he encouraged them, form a craft studio. And when they hesitated, they said, oh, we can't afford it. We're not making enough money to rent this space. He said, you can do it. You can do it. And they said, no, we don't have enough money. We're not making enough money. And then he says, okay, You don't have to do it. I'll love you anyhow. And he guilted them into it. And they did it. There were so many things. A guy's in the oil business. And so he says to him, yes, we can work together. And pretty soon there's an oil company in our Sangha, in the Sangha, employing people. People were selling gems, and they formed a company called Triple Gem. Artists came. Jean-Claude Van Italy, who just died, he was the author of a wonderful play on Broadway, famous. And he and Rinpoche, it's like Rinpoche's bird song was, whatever people brought to the path, we can work together. That was the bird song. So Jean-Claude comes and he brings theater, and we wind up having a big theater conference in Boulder. I think I mentioned it, with people coming from the East and West coasts, directors and actors and filmmakers. And it's just like anything, you can use it to bring it into meditation, into awareness. And in doing that, you give up ego and you start to act out of compassion and clarity. He says there will be confusion taking place, of course. Absolutely. Because we're on the path. We're not Buddhas yet. But at the same time, there is also a glimpse of openness, sanity, and possibility. More and more and more as we practice more and more, as we bring it into our daily lives, into our business, into our oil wells, into our theater projects, into whatever we're doing. What's against it is the ape instinct, he calls it. The usual human instinct to feed ourselves first and only, and make friends with others if they can feed us, and that we give up. He says, here we're talking about a kind of superhuman instinct, deeper and more full. It's superhuman. He also said that it's ultimately human. We're willing to feel empty and deprived and confused, but something comes out of that, which is that we can help somebody else at the same time. And then here's this statement. By taking the Bodhisattva vow, we actually present ourselves as the property of sentient beings. Depending on the situation, and this is right out of the literature, we are willing to be a highway, a boat, a floor, or a house. We allow other sentient beings to use us in whatever way they choose. But there's a caveat here, which comes later, but I'm going to bring it up now. And that is that we don't exercise idiot compassion. Idiot compassion is letting people do harmful things. We are appealing to the best in a person. We are seeing what they need, helping them to do what they need to be sane, not to be insane. And so he says, it is essential to avoid idiot compassion. Working with the world requires practical intelligence. We can't just be love and light bodhisattvas, or we will be harmful, create addicts. The bodhisattva's approach is to help others help themselves. Yeah, we don't want to feed people's neurosis out of idiot compassion. Help a person be a drug addict or an alcoholic or whatever it might be. Something harmful to that person. That's idiot compassion. Then he talks about the necessity for a sense of humor, because we could take the whole thing too seriously. And he says beginners often get caught up in serious militancy, which is quite different from the lightheartedness and joy of the Bodhisattva path. There's a tremendous sense of celebration and joy in finally being able to join the family of the Buddhas. And this is really dependent on us switching, beginning to see, switching to reality, giving up fictions. we're going to become a Buddha. He says, we're giving up our ambition to be a Buddha. We're giving up our ambition to get enlightened because it's just another neurotic dream, another form of self-aggrandizement, self-promotion. And who has time for that anymore? Now we're too busy living in the world, making our art, making love, making our friendships with other people, helping, being of help because we're inspired to. We want to help other people. And then, nevertheless, helplessly, he says, we attain enlightenment anyway because we've given up self-concern, self-aggrandizement. And so what we're doing is the Bodhisattva vow is a leap in which we begin to let go of our egocentric approach to life, much less spiritual development. And then by doing this, we're beginning to transplant awakened mind, bodhicitta, into our minds, our hearts. That's what it means to come present. And when we come present, to feel the beauty of this world, which is the compassion. That's why bodhicitta, the word chitta, bodhi is awake, chitta means alternatively mind, heart. Because when we awaken, it's both clear, which is mental, mind, and it's heartfelt. We begin to fall in love with life. First, relative bodhicitta, putting ourselves up as candidates for bodhisattvahood. He said it's like having the intention to take a journey and buying a ticket. Then we actually do it. We come present, we feel the compassion, we see the clarity. And that's like being actually getting on the train and taking the trip. I remember I once saying, he had one of his students flip out, close student. And everybody was kind of freaked out. How could that happen? This guy was a close student. And finally, one night we were sitting around, he was doing a seminar up in Allens Park, Colorado. And we're sitting around at night around a campfire, I think. And he just laughed and he said, everybody overestimates the importance of a guru. He said, a guru is just a clerk, using the English word for clerk. You know, he was pretty new out of England at that point. He said, a guru is just a clerk. He says, I sit in the booth and sell the tickets. You get on the train and take the trip. So taking the Bodhisattva vow as an expression of relative bodhicitta, is an expression of buying the ticket. It's an expression of intention. He says it's like a heart transplant. We're replacing our old heart, which is oriented towards ego and self-aggrandizement, with a new heart, characterized by compassion and a larger vision. And this only comes about as we begin to connect to meditation practice and what meditation really means, which is vipassana, awake, coming into this present world, appreciation of this world as it is, without hope and fear, without good and bad, and appreciation of ourselves the same way. The same way. And gentleness is important because gentleness is another one of the characteristics of this open state of mind. He just says, it's saying the same thing again and again. I'm just reading here. It says, it is the discovery of our own wakefulness, as opposed to dream, or bodhicitta, that creates the trust that allows us to take such chances, Such wakefulness, once acknowledged, develops constantly and cannot be destroyed. So it may feel like you're only seeing this wakefulness, this absence of dream, of thought, in little flashes, but it grows. It grows, and we switch our loyalty to it. And it seems like it's taking forever, but that's just another thought. And from a Buddhist perspective, it goes by in a finger snap, the whole progression. On the Bodhisattva path, non-aggression, as wanting things to be otherwise, becomes one's total view of the world. See, the real meaning of aggression is wishing things were different and then trying to make them that way. That's so aggressive. So we give up privacy and personal territory. You know, how many times have we felt ourselves or seen it in others that we're saying one thing and thinking another? Hidden agendas, double thinking, right? That's what is being given up. We're coming completely present. So we're giving up privacy and personal territory. He says, we have been sold to sentient beings. I mean, it's not like anybody got any money for it. But there's really nothing left to do. We're talking not about being good people. We're talking about waking up and being real in this world. It's very, very real. It's not like you have to talk yourself into something and you're going to get a reward by being a good person. It's just a matter of waking up to reality. So we don't have any privacy. That doesn't mean that we're unprivate, that we're naked and exposed. If you feel uncomfortably naked and exposed, you're still holding on to some privacy. See? You're wishing you weren't so naked and exposed. You want to be private. It's a matter of giving that up altogether, that whole dichotomy, that whole inner-outer. So we're giving up public and private altogether by taking the Bodhisattva vow. And he says, we're not leading double lives anymore. We are leading a single life, dedicated to practice as well as to helping other beings. It's a single life because it's awake, it's here, now. So it's much more demanding than being a refugee, taking the refuge. When we take the refuge vow, we develop some understanding. And this is why there has to be a gap between taking the refuge vow and then taking the Bodhisattva vow. For those of you who are just taking the refuge vow, you want to make sure you're really getting into it. Taking the refuge vow, we became strong, disciplined people, no longer nuisances to the rest of society, because we're coming present, we're being sane. But still something was missing. It was not completely fulfilling. Having given up the ground, having given up everything with the refuge vow, we take refuge in the Buddha as the example, the Dharma as the teachings, and the Sangha as our society of friends on the path. Now we begin to become inspired to relate with the world, and this is, we begin to head towards being bodhisattvas. We are inspired to relate with the world. And we need to make a leap, a further leap, which is the Bodhisattva vow. He says, we're barely ready to take the Bodhisattva vow, but we can't hold back. once you begin to get the logic of it. Can't sit and sulk about our negativities. We need to go out and work with other people. So there is the Bodhisattva activity, that you invite all sentient beings as your guests. Where's that song? Be my guest, be my guest. We offer hospitality. I think of him, and what an example he was for those of us who knew him. I see some heads nodding here. Because he just lived in the open all the time. There was no privacy for him. He was always relating to people. And he says, compassion is the heart of the practice of meditation in action or bodhisattva activity. It happens as a sudden glimpse, simultaneous awareness and warmth. See, this isn't a feeling sorry for. This isn't idiot compassion. It's simultaneous awareness and warmth, appreciation, friendship, love. He said it's a threefold process. The sense of warmth in oneself, become present. There's a quality of friendship and love, warmth. A sense of seeing through confusion, giving up the I other thought process, and a sense of openness, which is being here. This whole process happens very abruptly. There is no time to analyze, not even time to note, I am doing this. I am doing blah, blah, blah. You don't even bother. He says we might be afraid that we don't know what the right decision or action is, but we can push ourselves into the situation so that the proper direction comes about naturally. That's scary. So we're taking a leap, we're pretending a bit by taking the vow, but this is necessary to develop our confidence. And we begin to practice, or we begin to contact what are called the paramitas. Para means beyond, and mita is virtue. So these are the transcendent virtues. 6, actually there are 10, but mostly people focus on the first 6. First one being generosity. And again, I mentioned these 3 levels of generosity, material goods, freedom from fear, and the Dharma, egolessness, that you can give to other people when you have the capacity. And he says, in this regard, everyone who takes the Bodhisattva vow is regarded as a potential teacher. Definitely. Which is something to really want to do. It's a way of living such a more fulfilling life. And also, when you teach others, you learn. So we're giving up our habitual patterns of selfishness, especially as they pertain to spirituality, that we're going to use spirituality for self-promotion. And we become generous in the sense that we're open with the people around us. We're open-handed, we're open-hearted, we're open-minded. That doesn't mean we're naive. We're not going to engage in idiot compassion. We're going to help people help themselves. And we see all the people around us as being, while they may be neurotic, at core, every human being has the potential, is fundamentally sane, awake. And that's what we address and work with. The second paramita is the discipline of morality. It's called Shila. First one, generosity, is Dana in Sanskrit, Shila. And it's based on trust in oneself. Traditional morality, like I'm going to be a good person, a bad person, is based on fear. Fear of one's own selfishness and aggression. But this kind of discipline is based on appreciation of one's sanity and wholesomeness that each one of us has. And so we act out of that. And it allows the Bodhisattva, each of us, to act skillfully in wholesomeness. He says, the sense of trust in oneself allows the Bodhisattva to work skillfully with whatever is happening, to the point of being willing to commit dangerous things, seemingly harmful things, out of compassion for the sentient beings, things that normally seem like they're something you wouldn't do. So true action arises out of a sense of trust in one's own sanity, trust in one's own compassion, clear seeing, and it involves arousing that trust in others. The third one is the patience, paramita of patience, Shanti. It's willingness to work with our own emotions through the practice of meditation, which in turn allows us to begin to work peacefully with others. Usually, if somebody wrongs us, we get really resentful, harbor tremendous resentment, and refuse to forgive them. But the paramita of patience requires that we stop that ego-centered approach of always blaming others. And we don't return the threats, the anger, the attacks. In fact, we might even do the reverse. We might even take the blame as an exercise in egolessness. The fourth paramita is what's called virya in Sanskrit. He's translating it as exertion. It also sometimes is translated as joy, because when you have joy, you have energy. And coming into the present moment, there can be tremendous joy of being free from neuroticism and being in touch with the reality of the situation. And so one has the energy to interact, to live energetically. The fifth one is the paramita of meditation, which is the willingness to bring awareness to one's own neurosis and to the neurosis of others, to give up judgment, good and bad, and to see things accurately as they are, that they're formed out of error, these neuroses that we have and others have, and to understand that. And this brings us to the last of the 6 paramitas, which is the paramita of prajna, transcendent knowledge, which is a quality of, first of all, interest in the teachings that is non-dogmatic and is not based on furthering the development of ego. It's giving up of the language and perspective of ego. That's what prajna is. It's seeing things without ego. Ego's constantly manipulating, judging, using things for the benefit of I, this fictional I that only lives in that plan at that moment. Prajna is seeing things in the absence of all that, as they really are. He says it's the perky quality of interest in the intellectual logic of the way things are. And it's based on the practice of meditation. Meditation is where you develop clear-seeing prajna. And he talks about that the importance, again, he keeps going back to not developing idiot compassion. Idiot compassion would be like a doctor who spares the patient the painful procedure or medicine they need to be well, or the mother who spoils the child and makes the child into a neurotic and selfish individual. That's idiot compassion. Real compassion is not based on simple-minded avoidance of pain. It is uncompromising in its allegiance to sanity, to reality. And it addresses what is wholesome in each one of us, what is wholesome, sane, compassionate, not only in oneself, but in others. He says, so the final cop-out of a bodhisattva is when, having already achieved everything else, she is unable to go beyond idiot compassion. Got to try and help the person in the wrong way. So taking the bodhisattva vow is not for the pleasure of ego. It is beyond oneself. It's a heroism or a bigness of mind that fills all of space completely, utterly, absolutely. There is only the vast idea of unceasingly helping all sentient beings as limitless as space along the path to awakening. So the ceremony is a public statement of your intention to embark on this bodhisattva path, which is, you might say, twofold. On the one hand, it's the intention to wake up from dreams of I and other. And on the other hand, it's the intention of having woken up to enact one's inspiration, one's compassion, one's love for this world that we feel even before we take the bodhisattva vow, even before we begin to wake up. We all feel it. It's human nature. It's just that it grows and becomes dominant. And then he goes into what the ceremony is, and I think we're going to... Should we do this? He says the ceremony is magical. The bodhisattvas of the 3 times are present, watching you. You prostrate 3 times to them, you take the vow. There are a couple of things. You have to make a gift, a bodhisattva gift. It's traditional. And normally it's a gift to the preceptor. And it's meant to be something that sort of symbolizes your ego. You're giving away your ego. But we can't do that. We don't want to do that anyhow. And because we're not in present. So I'm going to be asking each of you to make a gift to some one institution, whatever, in your orbit. It could be money to a charity. It could be a gift to a friend who needs something. It could just be something that is meaningful to you that you're going to give to someone. And if that's an important part of the ceremony. We're going to be experimenting with this new form. Usually what happens is, when we're doing it in the flesh, in presence, is you would come up to the shrine and there'd be a table there and you'd put your gift on it. It was pretty funny all those years with Trungpa Rinpoche. I mean, he never used those gifts, but you'd see them on the persons of other people in his orbit. Somebody'd make a gift like a ring or something like that, and pretty soon you'd see it on the hand of a man or a woman that you knew was another student of his. It's like they all got sort of passed around. I think when I gave my Bodhisattva gift, I gave this expensive briefcase back in the days when business people carried briefcases. And I was very proud of this briefcase. And I gave that. So you pick something that you want. It can be money, and give it to a charity. So you have to give a gift. I'm also going to be sending out some literature that you're going to use during the ceremony. There's some things that we have to read from The Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa, and also from Shantideva's The Way of the Bodhisattva. And I'll be sending you what you have to read. You also need your refuge name, because when you take the Bodhisattva vow, you use your refuge name, I, whatever it might be. Take this vow. You insert it. And there are all these chapters that are quite beautiful from the Bodhicharya Avatara and from Gampopa. Gampopa, for those of you who don't know, he was a man who lived in the 11th century in Tibet, and his wife and children died in a plague. And so he became a monk, a monastic. Monasticism was very new to Tibet in the 11th century. It had been brought in by an Indian teacher named Atisha, who brought in a system of monasticism called Kadampa. And Gampopa became the head of the Kadampa order. And then he became a student of Milarepa, a wild yogi who lived in the caves, and was his foremost student until Gampopa showed up. Milarepa's foremost student was another yogi named Ray Chungpa. And then Gampopa came, and he became the foremost student and achieved enlightenment. And he founded, he's really the progenitor of the Kagyu sect, our sect, Kagyu. Kagyu means the lineage of the word. And his first successor was the first Karmapa. And then we have this series of Karmapas, who are, for those of you who know about them, they're the head of the Kagyu sect, and we're up to the 17th as the current Karmapa. Trungpa Rinpoche knew the 16th and brought him to Boulder and the States. And we all met him. They take reincarnation. So we're going to be reading from a work by Gampopa called The Jewel Ornament of Liberation, just some passages as part of the vow. The Jewel Ornament of Liberation is a class of text which you may study at some point. It's called a Stages of the Path type of text, Lam Rim text. And each sect has its most famous Lam Rim sect. It's all Lam Rim text. And this is the Kagyu one. So I don't think I'm going to, you can read about the ceremony if you wish. But I don't think I'm going to describe it here. It's not necessary. We're at 6:30 anyhow. He says about, and you get a name, of course. always get a name every time you get take an initiation, and you, as you proceed into the Vajrayana, you will take more initiations and get more names. And this name, unlike the refuge name, is secret. You can only reveal it to other people who have taken the Bodhisattva vow. And he says of this name, it's an expression. He says, you receive the Bodhisattva name, which symbolizes generosity in working with others, an expression of non-ego, this name. You are no longer yours. You are no longer yours, but you belong to others. And this isn't, it's not like you're saying, I belong to others. That would be ego again. It's that in coming present, really present, and giving up all those ego machinations that live in thought, we become part of the matrix. And the matrix is made up of space and others. So you're no longer yours, but you belong to this, to others. Bodhisattva names are more powerful than refuge names because there is more need of being reminded to work with others than of being reminded to work on yourself, which is what the refuge name is about. Your Bodhisattva name is an expression of your subtle style. Somebody could insult you by using it. Somebody could encourage you by using it. It expresses a more sensitive area than the refuge name. In other words, your Bodhisattva name acts as a password. It is a very accurate guideline to your particular style of basic openness in working with all sentient beings. Both your potentialities and your basic attributes are expressed in your Bodhisattva name, which should be recalled whenever a critical situation comes up. It is a token that you have made a link with your Buddha nature. And it represents a commitment to basic sanity in your willingness to devote your life to all sentient beings. And then there's a celebration. So we can have a discussion.
Well, Meg and
Alejandro, oh, you want to call somebody?
I'll go
Okay.
second.
Hi, Meg. It's good.
Thank you. I was wondering from the Bodhisattva vows point of view, it seems that compassion is a very active and engaged energy with its environment. And I was wondering if there are any differences between the words compassion and generosity from the Bodhisattva vows perspective.
Compassion is much broader. It's environmental. And within it, the paramitas take expression. You might say that they are expressions of compassion and wisdom, each paramita, generosity, for instance. Compassion is environmental, it's huge. It's one of the, if you could talk about the Mahayana in terms of three main principles, they would be, and we're going to come to this, emptiness, shunyata, which is a descriptor for reality, prajna, clear seeing beyond the dreams of ego, and compassion. Compassion is the flip side, you might say, of prajna. If you see things clearly, then there's this open-heartedness towards them, lack of judgment, lack of using, and appreciation instead. So it's a warmth. Clear seeingness on one side of the coin, warmth on the other. And then within that, you get the actual paramitas, the virtues, generosity, patience, discipline, energy, meditation, and Prajna again, and beyond. Actually, there's some more that come along. The seventh one is skillful means. I forget what the eighth and ninth are. The 10th is power.
It could be said that generosity is an expression of compassion. From here, it's one of the qualities of compassion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So is patience and discipline and joy, energy. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Who else? Did you have something, Meg?
Decided to save my question for tomorrow night.
Okay. That's
It
good.
has something.
That's nice. Something to look forward to. Thank you.
Yeah, as I was reading this and thinking about it, I became a little concerned that this can lead to a sense of arrogance. If you say, "Wow, I'm not going to be dragged down by someone else's pettiness. I'm going to be above that. I'm going to actively try to generate compassion to that person who is trying to do me harm or wants something from me. I will deal with that. That kind of inflates you in a sense, and can potentially put you in a position of being condescending to the object of compassion, if you will. And it seems like it's not a difficult step to go from one to the other. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts on how to, where the line is, and when you need to hold yourself back, or when you need to go over, and so on.
I think this all comes about, the constant emphasis is on being of benefit to others. That's the relative intention, relative bodhicitta. And that's important. And then the absolute bodhicitta is seeing it in the mind of meditation, without I and other, but seeing it just as this, and responding accurately. I think if you're doing what you say, what you're describing, which we've all experienced, I'm sure, one is lost in dream again, the dream of I, self-aggrandizement of one kind or another, self-protection, revenge, one of the kleshas. Say you've been hurt, by somebody, and you look at that individual and you say, they're a very neurotic person, and I'm going to get even, or I'm going to show them how neurotic they are. A lot of ego.
Well, it's actually saying, well, I'm above that. I'm not going to do that. And I mean, to actually care for the person, that's a kind of tricky.
Yeah. There are practices where you just go against your natural inclination. Your natural inclination is to protect yourself, and you go against that. That's a practice. And actually put yourself in harm's way emotionally. That's in the Lojong studies. I mean, we're all so smart. We know when we're fooling ourselves, when we're being hypocrites. You know,
I wish that were the case.
well, in retrospect, anyhow. Yeah, thanks, Ed.
I have something I'd like to share. I recently attended virtually a live teaching by Mingyur Rinpoche, and maybe Sarah was there, on the way of the Bodhisattva. And of course, there were a lot of questions about how could I possibly take this vow? How could I possibly be capable of this, right? And he answered them in various ways, but I think the last, because there were several right in a row, and his last answer to the question really stuck with me. He said, would you, if you had the power to take away people's suffering and help them see the truth, would you? And then they did a virtual survey on the screen, the people, his technicians, and you had to type yes or no. And 98% of the people said yes, according to Mingyur Rinpoche. And that really, he said, that's it. He said, that's it. If you had the power to do this, would you? He said, all it was taking was that willingness.
Thank you. I'd like to know about the 2% who said that they wouldn't.
I think they were just oppositional, that's all.
An oppositional personality. Right. Anybody else?
Would it be possible to ask just a couple more questions? Just really
Robert
quick.
had his hand raised, so let's do that and then come back to you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. What I'd like to know, John, is why is the inability to get beyond compassion, the inability to get beyond idiot compassion noted as a final cop-out?
I just think he's saying it's a big error. Idiot compassion keeps you trapped in ego. That's the way I read it. How about you?
I wonder if there is a difference between, especially if the ego is involved, right?
I'm having trouble hearing you, Robert.
Oh, I wonder if there's a difference between can't and won't. Like the attachment to certain things being so dramatically powerful that it becomes a won't. And there's just so much involved in the idiot compassion. And it becomes a form of, like a form of manipulation.
Okay.
But it's a final cop-out? Is it, maybe that's a last bridge to cross? This is the word final that I'm really curious about.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to say myself. Maybe some other people. Barry, did you have something?
No, I was just scratching myself.
I mean, now we get, if I scratch myself, when I get,
I'll say something.
Laura,
Robert, there's like feeling in me with cop out that I want to be friendlier than that to myself. Like just being aware of the part that really doesn't want to give that up. And having some compassion for that.
so how is it a cop-out? I'm not clear. Laura?
You're asking me?
Yeah,
I'm just saying the term, the final cop out, sounds like, I might have this wrong, but talking about the way that we deceive ourselves. And that Robert was saying about what if there's a real strong desire of not giving up something that you're very attached to? And is that the final thing you have to cut through? Or maybe I didn't get that right. Is that what you meant, Robert?
and I'm,
Can you repeat that, Laura? I didn't hear you.
we're having trouble understanding you. The sound quality is, I think I am anyway.
Oh, all right. I don't have any better control over that, so maybe I'll just be quiet.
Okay,
Shani, I think had something.
good.
Yeah, I have a question, but also on the idiot compassion point, I think it's difficult in my experience to discern what is the right action and what is idiot compassion, in the sense that I think it might be helpful, but actually it's not helpful, and what is actually helpful. I don't know. Like sometimes I need to discern if this idiot compassion or is it actually helpful. Like that's something difficult for me. But my question is, I'm curious because John, you mentioned three ways that we help. And the second way being helping people or sentient being to be free from fear. I wonder if you can say more to that, and how does one do that?
Well, I think it depends on the kind of fear the person has. But if a person, say, is fundamentally, or not fundamentally, but has a problem with self-confidence, you might encourage them to feel confident by one way or another, depending on the situation, depending on the relationship that you have with the person.
I guess it depends on the exact situation.
What?
I guess it depends on the exact situation and the person.
Yeah, I think there are all kinds of opportunities to help people not be afraid of one thing or another. Person's going into a testing situation and they're very nervous, and you say to them, "You can do it," you know, and they perk up a little.
Okay, it's
you know.
easy to do.
Huh?
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, it just seems that out of so many things, that being free, like I didn't expect the second kind to be helping someone to be free from fear. It's just
that's right out of
interesting.
Gampopa, by the way. That's in
Okay.
the Jewel Ornament that he gives that, and it's stuck with me all these years. I read it years ago. That there are these three levels, and yeah,
Okay.
it makes some sense to me. But I mean, you know, we could discuss it, argue it. That is, yeah, I think it's open to discussion and interpretation. I remember I've said this before, when Trungpa Rinpoche created Shambhala training, he was creating these training situations to have the Shambhala teachings taught. And the first poster that he did here in Boulder was a calligraphy, a symbolic calligraphy of the word Ziji in Tibetan. Ziji means confidence. And I was sort of nonplussed. I thought, well, that's a funny, why not Dharma or enlightenment or awakening or something with confidence? But over the years, I've come to understand, how important confidence is. Confidence, real confidence, not false confidence that, where you're saying, oh, I'm a great person, But real confidence is just knowing that the situation is something that you know how to move through. And you don't even bother telling yourself. So he used to say, true confidence is silent.
Yeah, I
And-
think that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why it's difficult to figure out how you help people to be free from fear, because it's like you need to be very skillful and actually see the cause. And I don't know, it's just, okay, I'll try to figure out.
Can you hear me now? Did I fix my problem? No?
No, but we can
I
hear
was
you.
about
Try
to
it.
say, I just want to say we are getting close to the end. of
Okay,
time.
wait. How about now?
And you just muted yourself.
It keeps going to this. All right. And
That's true confidence, muting yourself.
can you hear me now? Yes? Yeah? Yeah, okay. I was thinking that trying to make other people feel safe is, I think just offering our connection to other people is like such a fundamental part of being human, that social connection. And that we can't really learn unless we feel safe. And to me, that's why that would be such a fundamental thing of helping people with their fear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. Well, perhaps we should end and continue this discussion tomorrow night.
May I ask a quick question?
Of course.
I understood that the reading tonight was the chapter on emptiness, shunyata. Did I get that wrong somehow?
Afraid so.
Was that a reading for another time, or?
Yeah, I was saying that it was for next week, but I think now I'm going to put it off another week in the next email that goes out. But last week I sent out 2 different emails, one of which actually had a PDF of the reading for tonight, and the other which said what it was.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, that must have been the confusion then. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Well, friends, let's do the, Sarah, do you want to lead us in the dedication of merit?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody, I think.
By this merit may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.